got a trio from Grimm Parker Architects here. They have offices in the DC area and in Charlottesville. And we have Zak Schooley, AIA, Vice President. Raise your hand, Zak.
Yep.
And Lauren Gilmarten, who is an architectural designer, and another architectural designer, Julio Cruz. So and we're going to talk about, Grimm Parker did a study about multifamily design as a result of COVID. So Zak, what were some of the big findings of that study that you did?
Sure. It's interesting. A lot of, most of the residents really found there's a lot of health, lifestyle, and safety concerns, safety issues in a lot of residential projects.
Yeah.
In addition, a lot of the tenants need more space, that we found a lot of issues with outdoor areas not quite being available in a lot of these projects.
Mm-hmm.
And just common spaces really need to change. They just, a lot of things are a little bit more, maybe too close together at this point. There's a lot of people concerned about social distancing. We found there's a need to really explore those areas and really just how tenants operate on a day-to-day basis and really integrate with their buildings.
Yeah, well, we're months and months into this thing, and everybody's learning, and everybody's appreciating what some of the, if you will, design flaws of past apartment and condo design have been, and how can we improve them? Let's look at a typical unit here that you've done. Zak, what were some of the problems with the typical unit, past units, if you will?
Sure. It's interesting too. A lot of our apartment buildings have gone away from balconies over the years. You try for really increased density and getting as many units as you can in projects. But we found that the lack of outdoor space really dedicated for each user was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, lack of storage space. Again, with the density, we find now we'll talk about some long-term storage needs that we're finding in units, and same thing, that ability to separate, especially now with your office uses or work from home, digital distance
noise
for your kids,
noise problems,
noise from others, etc.
Yeah, storage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Lauren, take us through a common, a basic unit here, and tell us what you did. We've got putting up a slide about a typical one bedroom. What did you do that was innovative here?
Sure. So one thing we really wanted to challenge ourselves with is trying to adapt one of our existing one bedroom typical layouts to kind of see what are some small but significant changes that we could make to our typical unit design. So, usually when we design these units, we have, a living space and a kitchen with a built-in island. Which generally works pretty well, but this isn't exactly adaptable to different family types or different lifestyles, and especially not adaptable to people that are now working from home. So one thing we wanted to do was create flexibility by, for instance, incorporating movable tables or island space. It sort of expands your workspace.
Yeah.
Making a larger living space so that you can actually separate a living space from an exercise space, or, trying to create some separation between different programs that might happen inside your unit. And then also carving out like a small office space. One thing that was noted in our survey was that residents are having a hard time separating noise from other family members. So what are ways that we can create a small office space while somebody else could be working out in the living room?
That's going to be a huge hit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be big, just as long as it's and more storage. I see you've got a 5-foot balcony in there as well. That's really nice. And a coat closet at the entry. Very interesting. Why did you do that?
One response that we got that really got us thinking was, right at the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone was sort of sanitizing all their groceries or like having a touchdown space for all of their outside items, we wanted a dedicated zone where people can put those things. They can come in the door, put their stuff down, that's closed behind, and then everything else in your unit is sanitary and out of the way.
Kind of like a mud room, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Just rethinking some of these things that are very easy to accommodate for. I mean, we have 1-bedroom den units, but not every developer wants to put all 1-bedroom den units in their apartment. So how can we make a minimal square footage change to add that extra coat closet, add the small workspace, and then add the balcony?
Yeah, and then when you add the office nook, that has the benefit that the tenant doesn't have to take a 2-bedroom to get that office space, which is really brilliant. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and
yeah.
when we're talking about affordable units, you know, we specialize in affordable housing. So we're trying to think of ways that are impactful changes that are also affordable and can be done by a developer.
Zach, let's go on to some common areas. Reading your report, there was a big emphasis about the balance between temporary versus permanent design solutions. Could you talk about that in terms of common space?
Sure. You know, I think we've always been designers of flexible spaces for the years. You know, that's been a buzzword, you know, these multi-purpose rooms and things like that. But what we're finding is, you know, people still do need some places to isolate, you know, and I think some of our design approaches here will show that as well. Some of the common areas you still want to have that together feeling to be, you know, mixing with the residents of the project, but you still want to have places where you can be apart. You could be isolated, you know, working by yourself, or, you know, just changing the mood from your typical apartment.
All right. So Julio, let's look at some common public areas. What innovative things have you done here in common public areas?
So when doing this analysis, one of the things that we looked at was, you know, how were the residents coping with COVID-19, and how were they, you know, adapting to the situation, because there was a lot of sacrifices that needed to be done in order to make sure that, you know, you're living a healthy life. You know, work-life balance is something that that everyone talks about. It's always emphasized that, you know, that you need to have a balance in order to be healthy. So we were looking at ways to improve.
So how did you achieve that? How did you achieve that here?
So we achieved this by adding, like, for example, in the common spaces, we added offices. We added, you know, fitness rooms that were a little larger. That way you can, you know, rent these spaces out or come to these spaces. So it gives the residents another area other than their, you know, individual rooms to be able to work and do other things.
I see in this slide you've got a designated computer area, which I love. That's a good idea.
Yeah, so
that would be. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one thing that we also integrated in the design, just because you know, individual spaces is important, but also, you know, what are ways that we can include, you know, gathering spaces, you know, obviously respecting you know, social distancing and things like that, but spaces where people can gather in small groups to work together and be collaborative as always.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the mail and office space slide here. Lauren, what are some of the features that are new here? You've got the parcel delivery and the tenant mailboxes. Everybody does that, but what are some new things that you've got in here?
So, you know, one thing that we gathered from our study, you know, we do mail rooms in all of our buildings, but I think something that was illuminated during the pandemic is we're not making them large enough, and we don't have like parcel boxes that are big enough for grocery delivery or for larger packages. You know, everybody was ordering from Amazon, you know, at the height of the pandemic, and we got a lot of reports that packages were piling up in the lobby, packages weren't being secured because the mail rooms weren't large enough. So one thing we wanted to incorporate was, first of all, making our mail rooms large enough to actually accommodate more package items and more delivery items, and then also including things like refrigerated parcel boxes where people who are ordering their groceries, they can actually have them safe, secured, and cold during the day before they're able to pick
Very
them up.
important. And Zach, you know, I see you've got a couple of rentable office and rentable conference room in here just for tenants. I mean, I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's really, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, the offices, you know, it's interesting, like having people work from home, just as a general note, is pretty straightforward transition. But now we know we started multiple modes of distance learning. You know, you can imagine a tenant renting an office space for their child to get out of the apartment for a little while to do a project, or, you know, with small children of my own, you know, I wish I had a little more separation sometimes. But it's just a great, you know, it's another feature that these spaces can use. And with something like an individual, maybe mechanical zoning, you really can still maintain high beneficial air quality in these spaces and make them pretty easily able to be, you know, shared by multiple tenants. You know, antimicrobial fabrics and things like that on the furniture too.
And then there's the fitness room. And from my readings and what I've come across, people are really upset that they can't use their fitness rooms fitness centers in their buildings, and that's been a big problem. So, Julio, what are some of the things you've done in the fitness rooms to make them safer and sanitized and so forth?
Yeah. So I guess the most important thing would be to have sanitizing stations where people can come in, use the equipment, but also sanitize and make sure they're killing all the germs that these fitness rooms bring. Another important thing is having operable doors. That way you can introduce outdoor spaces, because obviously with COVID-19, the big issue is having these small compact fitness rooms. So allowing residents to have an indoor space, but also an outdoor space, to get fresh air and to get out get out of the four walls that essentially is what we do with COVID-19.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that are offering these kind of garage door kind of openers and so forth. That's really good. And I see you've got outdoor exercise areas in there. Lot of good thinking in here, and a flexible multi-purpose room. This would be much more conducive to people feeling safe in their workouts and so forth. So that's great. Well, I think we've covered a lot of the content. We're going to put up a slide here to tell people how to get a hold of this. And I want to thank our guests here for participating. They've been wonderful. But I also want to mention that several other members of the Grimm Parker team contributed. Azur Amin, Ashish Meyer, and Yulia Parr were also involved in this. So thanks to Grimm Parker today. You've done a great job, and let's see if we can get some of these designs implemented. Okay?
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.